here. You got Clemens.
Stop this raving at once.
I'm telling you, it's here.
Air and get that foolish woman back to the infirmary.
What is that? Move it, help me! Fuck!
Welcome back to the Hiding for Horrors podcast, where we review horror movies and horror franchises. I'm Mark.
I'm Tawan.
And today we're reviewing Alien 3, released in 1992, directed by David Fincher, and story by J. Vincent Ward, screenplay by David Giller, Walter Hill, and Larry Ferguson. Tawan, can you give the people the plot summary?
After escaping from the alien planet, the ship carrying Ellen Ripley crashes onto a remote and inhabited oil refinery. While living in the oil refinery until she is rescued by her employees, Ripley discovers the horrifying reason for her crash: an alien stowaway.
15 to 20 minutes into this movie, I just kept thinking, what the fuck?
How do we get
Why
here?
the fuck? And who approved it? Like, who approved this? Because this movie is a fucking mess. And like, you heard me read off like the screenplay by and the story by. Now, usually we review movies where the story by had three people, but at least one of those three people who came up with the story also wrote the screenplay. The fact that no one who came up with the story wrote the screenplay is red flag number one. Because, like, what the fuck is that? And, like, I don't want to jump to the scenes, but, like, starting off and we're finding out that Newt and Hicks are dead. I was like, this is not going to be. And even the fucking robot. I'm like, even the robot's dead. It felt like they killed everything good from the last movie. And I just knew it's going to be a bunch of new BS, and I was not going to enjoy it. And like I came into this movie knowing its reputation, but like as you made me super aware last week, I have seen a lot of David Fincher movies, and I have like 50-50 mixed opinions on Fincher. There's like movies that he did that I liked, movies that I did that I have seen once and will never see again. But I was coming into this one with like, I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm not gonna knock it down. And then, like, honestly, I don't even think it's his fault. This movie just. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I also was not a fan. Before we recorded today, I texted Mark and I was like, it doesn't look like Fincher directed this. Like, how I don't understand how one is they would direct this and then they go to direct Seven like right after this, because it doesn't correlate at all. It really feels like
This is his debut.
yeah, it really feels like he was just not he was given this like it was like they wanted somebody like he took it because he knew it probably would get him somewhere. That's what it feels like in my head, like one of those jobs where it's like, well, nobody else is gonna take it, I need my foot in the door, like let's get it done type shit. Because
Yeah, it's like I need somebody to give me a project so I can prove myself. And well, here it is. I guess I'll do it. I'm up for the job.
yeah, that's kind of what it felt like to me. Yeah, because it was just not the entire movie was just really not giving to me. And I will say, like, near the beginning of it, like, because this is my first time seeing this, and I also know, like, um, the reception around this movie prior. Like, I always knew that people said, like, Alien 3 was, like, not a good entry in the series. I knew that going into it. And, like, when I was initially watching it, like, in near the beginning before we got where we were, especially when it was just like Ripley and I believe it was Clemens, like that dude, like when it was like those two on the screen. Because and honestly it mainly just has to do with the actors, like they were really good though, like Sigourney Weaver and I think it was Charles Dance, I think that's his name, or I think that's his name. But those two, like on screen together, like they were really good, like in the scenes. And once he wasn't there anymore, I was like, okay, what are we doing now? And I also like they switched it up by having the aliens, like the alien come out of like different species. This time it was a dog, and it was also like a different type of alien compared to the others that we've seen. But I think that's kind of where like my good and like ends, and the rest of it I just was not messing with the entirety of it.
This movie just felt off, and I also felt like there were too many hands and like too many opinions, too many people involved in the behind the scenes, and there wasn't like a singular vision like there was for the first two. And like it just feels so disjointed and just like honestly, it wasn't even fun. Like, that first one, it was so closed off and so intense. So like it kept you engaged, and the visuals were amazing. So it has all of that to keep you engaged, even when it's like slow. And then that second one was like action packed and like a bigger cast, and it was moving fast, but you were entertained. Like you had something. It was at least good. This one, like the story isn't there, the visual isn't there, the character building isn't there. Like, am I supposed to care about any of these men who are convicted pedophile, rapists, and killers? Like, what? But let's go to the scenes that stood out to us: the good, bad, or indifferent. And for me, like I said, the scene where we learned that Newt drowns in her escape pod because of the sprinkler system, and then you find out that Hicks is dead. And apparently, the actor who played Hicks made more money off them using his photo in that scene than he did from the previous movie, which is wild. Yes, wild. And then we see David. Like the first movie made us not trust androids, and then we get to the second movie and we meet David. He's a good android, and just to like do away with him in that quick little scene, I'm just like, come on. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, why the fuck this android got me wanting to cry? Like, he did.
Do me a favor. Disconnect me. I could be reworked, but I'll never be top of the line again. I'd rather be nothing.
You sure?
Do it for me, Ripley.
Oh yeah, that was such a really good scene.
It was, which made me upset because it showed me what we had. It reminds me what we had the last movie and what we're not going to have in this movie. Because that scene was really good.
Yeah, when I was watching it, like watching that scene, and like some other ones as well, like some specific parts were like really good, but it was just so much of it that was just not, that it could not like hold it together.
Those little special moments didn't save it.
And honestly, most of those scenes that were really good were off the backs of the actor. Like,
yes,
they were just that good that like they were carrying, but everything else like outside of that, yeah. And it like in the others, we had both of those. Like, we had good scenes where the actors were, really good, and then we also had those good moment type scenes, but that really wasn't the case in this.
Yeah, and I feel like they introduced a lot of interesting concepts, like the fact that the face huggers like chosen host influences how the alien is when they're produced. Like, that's brilliant, because that dog type alien, like in theory and concept, it's great. It just looked bad on screen, which really took away from it.
It looked like, bad all around.
So horrible. And the only time the alien xenomorph looked good on screen is with that iconic shot when a xenomorph is like up in Ripley's face. Like, That's the one time it looks good, and it's because it's a close up.
Yeah, everything else, it was not hitting with that alien. Like I don't know what the fuck happened between the first two movies and now. Like, how does it look worse? Like, how does it look worse? Like when the
And
alien
the
was like,
technology's better.
yeah, and like when the alien was like in the background of certain scenes, that CGI was terrible. Like you could see the
So bad.
outline of the character and shit. Where like of the alien, where like you could tell it was just like CGI, and it's like I get it, it was a movie that was in the '90s, but like gosh, like no way that the other ones are looking
Just
better than
do
that.
it practical because they look so good and practical. You don't have to go to
But
CGI.
even the practical ones look bad too. Like I felt like when we had like up close, like besides that one of Ripley, like that iconic scene as you mentioned, besides that one, I feel like any other scene where the alien was kind of close, like I don't know, like I could tell that this was a person in the suit. Like in the other ones, while it was practical, and yes, there were, even in the first one, we know there was a person in that. Like I, I was immersed.
The only time you can tell there's a person in a suit in the first one is at the very end when it's fucking floating away in space. It's like, oh, that's a fucking dude in there. And then the second one, it was like one shot where you could tell, but like overall, it looked great. It was like one or two obvious shots and like a sea of really good shots of the xenomorphs. This movie was all just bad shots of the xenomorphs, whether it was practical, whether it was CGI. Like, there's a green glare coming off of it. Like, come on,
Yeah,
guys.
like that was not hitting at all, and I just yeah I was not feeling that, and it confused me even more because we had so many like aliens in the last movie, in the second
Hmm.
one, like on screen at once, and it didn't look as near as bad as this one that
And
we
then
had had
the
it
queen.
exactly.
The queen was huge and she looked good. They put this bitch on the fucking elevator, and you guys couldn't beat that. And then for me, one one last good scene. I thought it was good. They were doing an autopsy after she like viewed the bodies and she had that moment.
Mhm.
I was like, again, this is good, but it's reminded me that the good is dead and there's nothing left. Like I was like, ugh. But once again, there goes our girl trying to warn the people,
Yeah,
and
she was.
they kind of listened this time. But what about you? What scene stood out?
A good scene for me that I really liked, which one like I mentioned earlier, it was just off the strength of like the actors in the scene, was the one where Clemens was talking to Ripley about how he got into the prison and like due to his like addiction and stuff and giving people the wrong prescription. And asking her afterwards, like, do you still trust me to like give you a needle? And it like, and I hate, and I was, and it also made me hate as well because I thought like they definitely made it seem like he was going to be around for a minute, and then he gets snatched up, and I was like, oh, we're left with the rest of them now because none of the other ones were like none of the other guys besides maybe like Dylan, but none of the other like guys I really cared for, and they were setting those two up like really well, and also like gave Ripley a little love interest type of thing. And for it just like it taken snatched away like that, I was like, "Come on now, y'all, let this girl have something." Like they really did my girl dirty. But yeah, that specific scene though, that dialogue sequence, I really like that. Um, I also like the scene where Ripley had forget which, I believe it was Andrews. She had him doing the scans on her, so that she could see what was going on, and then she finds out that she had one of the chest bursters inside of her. I thought that was a really good scene as well. Um, and that little short scene where she goes to eat, I think it was breakfast with the inmates, and like she goes up to the table and Dylan is like, no, like he's like, no, like I'm a rapist, murderer, and like on all this to women. And Ripley, and I think Ripley replied like, oh, so that means you're scared of me then. And I don't know, I just thought that whole exchange was like good because just showing like Ripley, she stands
It
on
was.
business.
I'm trying to, but I was like, why is she bald? I had slightly forgot they had like some weird subplot of like lice or something. I'm like, why is Ripley bald? Like, what did I
I thought
miss?
I thought it was to have her fit in with the inmates. I didn't really know.
Oh, see,
No, that was my mind.
it was weird.
But outside of those scenes, everything else. Oh yeah, that scene you mentioned as well with the android. Um, that was good as well when Ripley brought him back and he asked her to like to disconnect him because everything hurt. I thought that was a really good scene, and it's stuff like that kind of made me a little like mad with the movie because they had like you could tell like certain stuff was put in there really good, and then you have everything else, and it definitely feels like a case of like too many cooks in the kitchen, especially when you get to see how many writers and stuff there were.
Yeah, it's I don't know. Like for me, the scenes are whatever, but it's like the visuals. Like I was just rewatching a clip right now, and literally the transition from the practical to the CGI xenomorph, like in real time, and scenes look so bad. Like it's not seamless at all, and that kind of takes away from me. Like, it's practical effects in horror movies make a huge difference.
Yeah,
Like,
always.
especially when CGI is in its infancy at this time. Like,
Yeah. Now, one scene that I would say wasn't good. We did not need a scene of Ripley almost getting sexually assaulted.
what was that?
Like, okay, so you telling like, and I think it pissed me off because the whole time they're like, oh, these guys are rapists, murderers, killers, and everything to women. Okay, you told us this. Why do we have to see it? Like, there's no reason for us to see this. It pissed me. That shit pissed me like clean off.
Yeah, that was not needed. I was just looking at. I think at that point I was like checked out, and then well, I do have another scene, but it's kind of mixed. It's good and bad. Good because it was very emotional and it's in an era, but bad because of the visuals. That fucking the scene where Ripley sacrifices herself because she knows she has an alien inside of her. Like the emotion behind that was
Hmm.
good, but when she falls back into that
Oh my
CGI
god,
fire pit, I quickly disconnect. Like,
Sigourney Weaver didn't deserve that shit after she would acted her ass off in all these movies.
and she didn't have to come back for this one. At this point, she is Sigourney Weaver. She had been in two successful Ghostbuster movies. She had been in a bunch of other successful movies. She did not need to come back to this. Like her doing this third one was basically what Jamie Lee Curtis did when she came back for Halloween H2O. It was like, this is what made me. I'm gonna come back, and this is what y'all gave her. Y'all gave her the script, and like this, like
Writers
that
know
should have been her. That should have been her Sarah Connor moment. But no, it was bad. It was really bad. I was like, no. Because I was feeling it. I'm like, she knows she has an alien in her. She's going to sacrifice herself for the people, for the betterment. She's going to get up there. And then the moment she fell backwards, I was like, wow.
wasn't that.
And and the fire, it looks so bad that even when you
Yeah.
start to see the alien burst out of her chest and she's dying, it's like, oh, I don't give a fuck because it looks bad. Like I should be moved by this right now, but it looks bad. I don't know. But did you have any other scenes?
Yeah, I think that was it for me.
Let's move on to the kills. I don't know if any of the kills stood out for me because the xenomorph was distracting, and the kills I do. The only kill that like really was like anything was when that one guy was climbing up the shaft out of the shaft, and they were like putting the 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 stuff that ignites all around the ship,
Oh
and he
yeah,
like
that was a good one.
yeah.
Honestly, I was a bit confused by that at first because I didn't know how if those like exploded on impact, and maybe I wasn't paying attention, but I
No,
didn't know if they.
because he dropped it the first time and it didn't explode, and that's when
Yes,
he went to go get it, and
and I
then
but when
that's
I will say when it dropped the second time, it dropped on like the tip part. I don't know if maybe if that made
oh.
contact, but I wasn't sure though. At first, I wasn't really sure when it did happen. I was like, bro, you just dropped it. Like, it's fine. But then when it dropped the second time, I was like, oh, okay.
But like, if he didn't drop it the first time, he would have gotten away because the xenomorph only saw him because he went to go retrieve the explosive. Like, sir, what are you doing? Let's move on to the characters. Now, there weren't that many like standout characters other than Ripley and the damn xenomorph. So let's just talk about the prisoners on the planet as a whole, and we can just point out any like individuals that we wanted to highlight. So, what are your thoughts on the male prisoners? Well, the prisoners.
I mean, they were, I mean, besides like Dylan and the one who was alive towards the end with her, who like helped her to cover the alien in the trying to remember what it was, the molten lead, um, Morris, that was his name. Yeah, so besides like Dylan and Morris, as far as like the actual prisoners go, um, the rest of them, they really were just there for like cannon fodder purposes. We needed somebody to die, and I mean, nobody really is gonna feel bad for the prisoners, especially after they tried to sexually assault our main character in the movie. So, um, I really didn't care much for their presence and whatnot. Um, they definitely tried to have them like stand up for themselves a bit because the it was the I'm trying to remember his name. The gentleman, Aaron, he was trying to say like tell them we're gonna keep everything here so that he could contact Wayland Utani and do all that stuff. But they were trying to like stand up for themselves and like agree with Ripley's plan because they didn't want to die, obviously. So, I mean, that was a like big part of it. But yeah, outside of like Dylan and Morris, the rest of them I really didn't care for. Dylan was interesting a bit, but the whole religious shtick was getting a little old for me. Not gonna lie, that's just a personal thing though. Um, Morse, he was just like he kind of gave off like kind of harmless vibes. I don't think he was one of the ones who tried to assault Ripley. Like he looked like he was just not obviously he wasn't harmless because he was in the prison, but at least for the situation that we were in, he was just trying to be helpful for what she needed at that time. Yeah. So outside of the prisoners, if we go to like the actual like staff, which was Andrews, Aaron, and Clemens. Clemens was definitely I liked his character a lot, and not gonna lie, I thought he was a droid. I really was thinking he was a droid the whole time.
I was waiting for a droid. I was so mad we
Right?
didn't get one.
Like I
Like that's like a
definitely thought he was
staple.
gonna be one.
Like we always need a droid. I don't know what they were thinking.
Yeah, I thought. Yeah, and I thought he was like I don't know. He was giving me like the vibes that he was like, and man, and
100%.
that's kind of like that actor too, because I know him from Game of Thrones, so he does like just he's kind of that way, like kind of cold.
That to my he plays Papa Lannister. Yes.
Yeah, so like he kind of plays like cold anyway, like I feel like that's just his style. So, but I feel like it would have worked if he was a droid. And
He should have been.
yeah, I feel like he should have been also. Like, I feel like it could have worked for the type of character that he was too, being like the doctor
Just
on
like
board.
no. Again, that's another one of those things, like missteps that this movie makes. So, like, why don't you have a droid? Like,
Yeah,
this is. I'm just gonna say, it. Like, it feels like this was two different scripts, or this was like a completely different script, and then they just took that script and was like, "Fuck it, we're gonna make it an alien movie." That's what this feels like.
hmm
I don't know. 'Cause, the characters don't feel right. Like we went from having this crew that felt like a family in that first one, and then we get to this second group, the second movie, and yeah, she's just meeting these people, but then you have like the guy there that she had a connection with. You had the kid that she had a connection with, and then you had the android who, understandably, she didn't want to trust it, but then it's like, damn, he saved the kid's life. And then when you get to the climax, they're all kind of connected to each other, and you feel something. And so when they all survive, like you're like, yes, like, they made it. This group of four, they're a nice group. I'm fucking with it. But like, I'm supposed to root for a bunch of fucking rapists and pedophiles and perverts who also just tried to sexually assault her. What?
crazy.
Like, but I meant to mention this in the scene, but when she was like, "You have a maximum security prison and there's no weapons on the planet," but I'm like, if the whole planet is a weapon, I mean, is a prison, then like it kind of made sense to me that they wouldn't have any guns because they're on a planet. Like I don't know. It just made sense to me that they had no weapons, but like it also, I don't know. It just wasn't a fight, and the characters just seemed useless. Like I hated them. They seemed useless, and they were all creepy, and it kind of took away from the xenomorph for me because I don't know about you. It's like, okay, we saw them try to assault her already, so it's like now I'm more concerned. Like, okay, is one of these fucking perverts about to attack her and kill her, and then a xenomorph? Like, I don't know. Like my viewpoint shifted because now we have, it's not just a xenomorph that's crazy. We have the xenomorph and we have a planet full of people that we're supposed to be like, oh, Ripley's with. But I don't know if that was just me. Was that just me? Oh.
Oh, you talk about like with the weapons, right?
No, okay. Without the weapons, they felt useless. There's no way to fight back. They came up with this stupid conceit plan. But because they had already attacked her and tried to essentially assault her, for me, I became more concerned. Like, oh, are they gonna like try to assault Ripley again before
Oh,
the climax? So I'm just
I
like,
didn't.
I
I personally didn't think that at that point,
mm.
but because especially because trying to do that, putting that shit twice in there, I would have turned that bitch off. I'd be like, all right, y'all doing too much now.
Okay, but I felt like they were gonna like do that and then have Xenomorph come in and like save Ripley before they have like some break. Like I don't know. It just felt, I don't know. They were distracted. That's what I could say. They were distracted for me. But any more thoughts on them or any thoughts on Dylan?
Uh, yeah, no more. Yeah, no more thoughts on them. Yeah, I definitely feel like it was a missed opportunity though to not have Clemens as a droid.
Yeah. Well, what are your thoughts on Ripley this go around?
I mean, Ripley can do no wrong for me. She hasn't yet. I mean, like Sigourney
Fact.
Weaver owns the character. Like she owns this character like really well. Like she she's like just very commanding in this role, and um yeah, I don't have anything to. I don't. It's like no notes almost on her because like she still even with what we're given in this, like she still like holds the movie together. Like if this was like a case of, you know, we didn't see Ripley again after the second one, and then this one it was just like let's say all these dudes, I would have not been interested at all. Like I would
Definitely not.
but because like she was there to like give like ground it somewhat and like just the acting chops of Sigourney Weaver, like I was just really like I ain't really into it, but like she was selling me on everything, and I thought that was really good. And Ripley's character is just like she's like tired at this point, like she's like, damn, I get to do this shit. Like this is the third time I did this shit, like and she knows what to do at this point, but it's kind of with the the situation took away what could have helped. So I had to improvise a lot throughout this one. But without her, without her, they would have been dead. If like they would have been dead, like trying to come up with like what to do to fight back because. Obviously, they don't have any. They didn't have any weapons. They wouldn't have had any fire to kind of use that, and like Ripley knew what to at least try to do um, in order to get through. I will give a shout out to Morse though, because he did tell her to turn the sprinklers on to blow up the alien.
Yeah, like Ripley. Honestly, her being here is what saves this movie. Because without her, I wouldn't be watching. Like there would be no way I could.
Yeah,
Like all the scenes that I enjoyed, they involved Ripley. Like Ripley and the returning and the cameo of the characters. So like you need Ripley for this movie, and I don't know. Like without her, it falls apart. But what are your thoughts on the Xenomorph? Because my thoughts was I didn't like it.
well, I mean, I thought it was like, I mean, I thought like it was kind of like cool when you like first like see it, but um, it felt a little boring. But I will say the kills that it gave, like when it was killing people, like it was like, gruesome as fuck. Like just like punching everybody in the damn head with the little head inside of its mouth. Like that shit was crazy. How it will like just puncture through somebody and then you just get like that big ass burst of blood. So I mean that was something. But yeah, the actual design of it and everything, like when we first were seeing it, I thought it was kind of cool. I thought it was going to be a little mini one the whole time, and but I guess it started
That
growing.
would have worked better. That would
Yeah,
have worked so better.
yeah, I thought it was gonna be a little mini one that they were gonna be going after, and I thought it was kind of giving me the vibes of like the Raptors at Jurassic Park. That's what I thought it was gonna be like. It was gonna be like really fast and nimble, and like they were gonna have to like outrun it or like chase it down or trap it or something. But it started feeding and getting bigger and stuff over time. So that. I thought, but that's how I thought it was gonna be. But um, I like the way the kills were going for it though. It just didn't look good.
It definitely didn't, and I don't. And it not looking good kind of took it away from me. Like I didn't. There was no fear. There was no nothing. I was just like, okay, this is the Xenomorph. We need a Xenomorph. Yay! But that's kind of all for me. But we've come to the end, but not the end because Tuan, you have to give the people the behind the scenes info and fact.
So, the reported budget of Alien 3 was between $50 and $60 million. It brought in a box office of $109.8 million. Some interesting facts. During early discussions about a second Alien sequel, it was suggested that Michael Biehn's character Corporal Hicks should be the main character, with Sigourney Weaver's only planned involvement being a brief cameo. A large number of concepts and scripts were abandoned for this movie, and filming began before the script was even finished. Right from the beginning, Alien Three's production was chaotic and troubled. Countless screenwriters came and went after contributing to the story, leaving David Fincher to inherit a screenplay that was muddled beyond repair. Even worse, Fincher was banned from making major changes. And a pilot episode for Italian cartoon series was made. Alien 3 wasn't just an ambitious production because of its brand new visual style, its ballooning production costs, or the amount of overtime the crew had to work. It was also supposed to launch a new spin-off entry into the Alien franchise, namely a cartoon series called Operation Aliens. And James Cameron called the film a slap in the face. Some critics' reactions: the film currently sits at a 48% on Rotten Tomatoes. Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert gave the film 2 thumbs down on their show at the movies, feeling it was repetitious. They criticized the drawn-out chase scenes near the end, as well as the lack of suspenseful action. Though they praised the art direction and Weaver's performance, with Ebert calling it probably the best-looking bad movie he's seen in a while, and Siskel said that the film failed to show any new tricks with aliens. A number of cast and crew associated with the series, including actor Michael Biehn, director James Cameron, and novelist Alan Dean Foster, expressed their frustration and disappointment with the film's story. Cameron regarded the decision to kill off the main characters of Bishop Newt Hicks as a slap in the face to him and to the fans for the previous film. He eventually blamed 20th Century Fox for the film, saying that Fincher got handed a big mess on a plate. Fincher has since disowned the film. He told The Guardian in 2009, "No one hated it more than me. To this day, no one hates it more than me." He also blamed the producers for not putting trust in him.
Do we agree with him about his own assessment of his movie? Tuan, do we cash or pass Aliens 3?
Definitely will be passing on Aliens 3. I know I won't be rewatching this one anytime soon or anytime thereafter, to be quite honest. It just, after the first 2, this just felt pretty disappointing to what we had previously. And if this movie didn't have, Sigourney Weaver or like Charles Dance and people like that actually like acting in the movie, I really think this would have flopped even harder than it probably already did. I'm glad David Fincher's career went shot up right after this movie, because this is definitely one of those movies that could have like sunk your career if you weren't like adamant towards like being a director. So I'm really glad that he pushed for it after this one, and we got the bangers of his other movies. But yeah, they could have kept this one. They could have kept this one in the studio.
For me, it's also a pass, and we had 2 cashes in a row. Like, it was going so great, Tuan. And now here we are, both passing, because this movie is not good. This movie is... You can tell that there were several script changes. You can tell that there are more than one person involved in the story. You can tell that David Fincher wanted to have his vision, but then the studio's vision and the writer's vision and producers, like, you can tell there are a lot of cooks in the kitchen because this movie's all over the place. It doesn't work. And then just knowing they're trying to tie into some sequel, like, cartoon series makes it worse. Like, is that what that fucking Xenomorph is for? Like, this movie, compared to those first 2, which, like, that first one was amazing, and then that second one followed it up and was even better. And then to come to this, like, come on. It's bad. It's a pack. But what about next week when we review Alien Resurrection? Good night.
If you like this episode, please check out the Haddonfield Horror podcast from big series like Friday the 13th, Halloween, and Saw, or our one-off reviews like The Blackening and Hereditary. You can follow Haddonfield Horrors on Instagram and TikTok, where the hosts post updates and mini-reviews. Full episodes are available on several podcasting platforms and YouTube. If you're listening to us on YouTube, please like and subscribe. The Haddonfield Horror podcast is produced by Mark Smart,
Maria Perez,
Tuan Griffin, and Elian Cordova. Themed by Lethal Injection and edited by Mark Smart.
The Haddonfield Horrors podcast is a Letters to Media production.
Should we do an intro?